everybody, and welcome back to Freedom on Deck on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. This is me, Chet Martin, joined as always by the redneck Brian Bro.
Oh yeah, baby, let's do it.
And the fearless one himself, CV Burton.
Freedom on Deck on the battlefield of ideas, where we don't flake out.
Oh yeah, we'll get to flaking out in a little bit, but we have an awesome show for you guys. We have public policy expert Michael Busler coming on by, and he's a contributor all over the conservative web out there. And we also have author of Spies in Congress, which will be out in October, Frank Miniter. And he's a New York Times bestseller. He's a contributor to Fox News. And that's going to be a very interesting story. It's going to be about the spy that worked under Debbie Wasserwoman Schultz. As you all remember, we're going to be talking about this. He covered the courts when that was all being presented to the American people. So we're going to be talking about that again. Well, after dragging Judge Kavanaugh's name through the mud, his family through the mud, and everything in his life through the mud, forcing the man to testify that he isn't a gang rapist, a drunk, lame duck Senator Jeff Flake told the press that he would be voting yes for Kavanaugh, but later called for a delay on the Senate floor vote. It seemed all carefully crafted out to me. Political theater when protesters confronted Flake in a Senate elevator. Of course, Friday, Senate GOP leaders decided to delay the vote of Judge Kavanaugh. And to me, everything that transpired stinks to high hell. Yep. And I will say this, Jeff Flake, not only is he a lame duck, but he's also the patsy in all of this.
He's a turncoat.
This is all planned. I'm telling you, when he showed up in that elevator, those protesters that confronted him, that was planned. And him making this announcement was planned.
Well, I can tell you this. Whether it was planned that the protesters would be there, that I don't know. But I could tell you, something happened behind closed doors. Because the Judiciary Committee went back into session, and Flake was nowhere to be found.
Mm-hmm.
Comes strolling in late, like 5 minutes late. Where was he? Who was he talking to? He looked like Hillary Clinton had just castrated him and put it in a box.
Yeah.
Because he came in like a sheep, like he had seen a ghost.
A wimp.
I mean like he's seen a ghost. His facial expressions, he looked just like he was scared.
Yeah. I was watching it as it was unfolding, and they had cordoned him off into some coat room or something.
Mm-hmm.
All the Democrats were in there pressuring him, and they could have threatened him, they could have bribed him, or they could have just reminded him how much he hates Trump and he has nothing to lose because he's not running again.
Or how much they have on him.
Yeah, and Grassley went right along with it. The whole thing is theater.
It's a good point you bring up. He's not running again. And Brian said, or what they have on him. Maybe he's not running again because they have something on him. And maybe when they confronted him, that's why he's the pansy in all of this. The patsy, rather.
Yep. If you don't do this, then we're going to let it roll.
We're going to let it roll.
I think it's all of the above. I think they have something on him. I think they bribed him. And I think they reminded him how much he hates Trump.
Well, and also, don't be surprised that the FBI might not wrap this up in a week. It might go a hell of a lot longer than that. You got a corrupted FBI that is partisan, that I guarantee you that there are going to be other accusers coming from the woodwork. And then even if they wrap it up in a week, folks like Flake and Susan Collins and the rest of them will say they can't vote for Judge Kavanaugh with more accusers coming forward.
Right. Well, here's the thing.
And we're going to talk about some of these other accusers later in the show,
that's
which
fine.
There's a horrible background to some of these people.
Oh, to a lot of them. You know, that's fine. I mean, look, it said that it was going to be limited in scope and time. So if at the end of the week, I don't give a crap. They're going to, Soros has pumped in like $240 some odd million into derailing Kavanaugh, into this midterm elections.
Correct.
I mean, all types of stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than that number.
Exactly. But that's what's being reported.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when you look at that kind of money, surely there's going to be more allegations. Surely there's going to be more mud.
Leave Shirley out of this.
I think that I think that people just need to realize what is going on, and I think the American people are realizing that. I've seen a bunch of articles of people who have said, "Look, I'm a Democrat, and I may vote Republican for the first time in my life because of the way that the Democrats have handled this whole spectacle." It's an embarrassment. And I think that people are going like, hey, like, I might be a Democrat, but I don't agree with this. You know, and there's a lot to it.
Yep.
There's a ton to it. First of all, I want to get an answer from both of you guys. Did she seem credible at all to you? Do you think something happened to her and that here's something that I was gathering through my mind. Was there a calculated move using a victim, saying, well, let's say it was Brett Kavanaugh here. The Democrats pushed that on her. Because now, if you see, they're talking about the leaking coming from Dianne Feinstein. Senator Cruz asked her, you know, how can you leak this story? And she immediately said that it was Blasey Ford that leaked it, throwing Blasey Ford under the bus. Mm-hmm. When we know it was her camp that leaked this story. We know it was Feinstein.
Well, there's other things. Okay, you have Feinstein. You have the fact that she is, you know, a professor at Palo Alto. Mm-hmm. Okay, and there's connection there with Feinstein and her husband
and the Board of Education.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. You also have, you know, besides that, you also have the fact that they scrubbed her professional profile on the college campus because of the fact that she said that she is a research psychologist. Now, in the state of California, you cannot say that you are a psychologist if you are not if you haven't, you know, if you don't have the doctorate, if you haven't taken the test. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
Now, you know, and you got to look into the law. But anyway, that right there could be where she perjured herself, because when she introduced herself to the Judiciary Committee, she said that she was a psychologist, not a research psychologist. She said psychologist.
She's a Democrat operative.
That's fine.
Right.
But if that's what she said, then she's misrepresenting herself. It's no different than if you said if you walked into a courtroom and said to a judge, "I'm here to represent Brian, and I'm his attorney."
I think
without passing the bar.
I think she perjured herself all the way through, and I could find a lot of inconsistencies. First of all, you know, she's putting on this fake voice, which I could do myself. You know, he threatened me, and I could do that voice. That was a total act. And then another thing, the attorney was questioning her and said, "You say you're afraid to fly. You couldn't fly in on Monday." But meanwhile, all over social media, you're saying you flew over here, you flew to Hawaii, you go here, you go there. And she goes, yep. Yeah, but that's for vacation. That's different. So right there, she just admitted that she lied.
And then she says, "I fly in once a year to visit family," and then corrects herself. Well, not here, but to Maryland. So you fly at least once a year.
From California to Maryland.
Right.
Yeah.
And then she's trying to sound like she's smart. She's like, in the indelible in the hippocampus is the like her memory. Well, instead of saying "I remember," she's saying indelible in the hippocampus, trying to sound smart. And then meanwhile, she
painted that up.
She didn't even know what exculpatory meant.
They painted that up.
Well, that's another. That was one that actually, you know, Marie has a background in social work and psychology. Even she had said, you know, you wouldn't use, you know, when she said how it affected her. You know, and I forget what the exact word was, but she used a specific word to describe how it's affected her, and you know, and Marie picked up on it and goes, you know, that's, you know, from a victim. Tell
the listeners who Marie is and why. She knows.
Marie is my wonderful woman in my life, and she has a background in social work, and she's former CPS caseworker and all that stuff.
Okay.
And she had said, that's not a word that you would use, from a victim or somebody that had gone through a traumatic experience. That's not a word that you would have used.
No.
You would have said, it affected me greatly, or it affected me, this way. But to use I wish I could remember the word. If you go back and you watch, I'm sure you'll pick it up. She was using very eloquent terminology in her description when she wanted to, and then turning around and acting stupid. And let's face it, that's what she was doing.
When she wanted
acting stupid when she wanted to.
And the Republicans also, what a bad job to bring that special counsel in.
I wish Cruz would have just grilled her.
That woman was horrible, and it didn't start to pick up pace until Lindsey Graham blew up, which I applauded Lindsey Graham, which I don't do often, and I was impressed by him. But that special counselor was embarrassing. A terrible hit job from Arizona, and I don't know if it's true or not, but Michael Savage said she's from Flakesville, Arizona, which is just, if that's true, how apropos that would be.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing how bad of a job the Republicans did with all this.
Yep.
It really is.
It was hard to distinguish Ford from that attorney whose name eludes me at the moment, because they looked the same. They wore the thick glasses, and they had the same measly weak voice.
Absolutely. Listen, we're going to be coming on back, and we're going to be talking to what happened to these men that were claiming that they were actually the ones that assaulted Christine Bosley Ford. And is the FBI also going to look into this? Let's talk about it. Who are these people? Where have they gone? And why didn't the Republicans go after them? Come on back to Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and stimulating talk. Don't forget, go to freedomondeck.com where you can check out our midweek podcast and all of our backtracks from the terrestrial show right here on WJJF. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check out our BitChute channel, check out our YouTube channel if you'd like to go there as well. And it's a one-stop shop for you folks. It's really worth your time, I'm telling you.
Telling us?
We were just cracking up because lately we've been putting a lot of memes together on Freedom on Deck, and some of them are actually too controversial to talk about on the airwaves. But we were just talking about doing one with the Thundercats character Mum-Ra with Ruth Bader Ginsburg as her turning into Mum-Ra. Or you could even use Dianne Feinstein after that latest picture that you posted up. So we'll work on something like that. And those are the fun things that you can see on our Facebook page. There's a lot of funny memes that you won't get anywhere else. They're Freedom on Deck approved. It's got our freedomondeck.com on the meme. It's the only place you'll see these memes. And if you see anybody jacking them, well, they can't jack them.
Smack them.
Yep, smack them. So this is from Time Magazine. The Senate Judiciary Committee interviewed two men who said they, not Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, attacked Christine Blasey Ford, the woman accusing the judge of sexual assaulting her while they were in high school, which he never sexually assaulted her. You see, this is the stuff that bothers me about these liberal pages. He did not rape her. She never even said that. She said he was in the process of what she thought was turned into rape.
Correct.
According to a timeline released Wednesday that covers how the committee responded to the allegations of sexual misconduct, the timeline revealed that the night before public testimony from Ford and Kavanaugh in front of the committee, it reveals that between September 24th and 26th, two men claimed to be responsible for the encounter with Ford, that the basis of her allegations. Ford said Kavanaugh pinned her to the bed, covered her mouth, and tried to remove her clothes at a house party in '82. Two other women have also come forward with allegations, which we'll get into later. And according to this timeline, committee staff interviewed the first man who said he believes he attacked Ford on September 24th. They spoke to him again on September 25th, and he said that the timeline that he described his recollection of their interaction in some detail, that he's the attacker. The man on September 26th sent a more in-depth written statement to the committee. That same day, the committee's investigation staff spoke on the phone with another man who said he had attacked Ford in 82. Now, I'm reading from Time.com, from Time Magazine, so this is not fake news. This happened. You liberals can't pull that card. I know how much you love to do that. But if you trust Time, then you got to trust what I'm saying here. And what I'm asking is, why is it that these two men came forward with these allegations that it was possibly them, and you didn't hear a damn word about it all week long? Nope. You don't get the names of these two individuals. And my other question is, once the FBI does a thorough investigation, which I'm sure they won't, no political bias there, I'm sure that they'll look into these two individuals and figure that out. I would hope.
Well, I mean, if you're going to look into Judge, and you're going to look into her close friend and everything else, I would think that with those two men coming forward with that information, they would have to look into that. Because if they did interview these two people and they were actually real, because we don't have their names or anything like that, if these two people are real and the FBI interviews them and they do indeed say, no, that was me. That was me. I'm telling you, that was me. I mean, I was stupid. I was a kid, but yeah, that was me. That was not Judge Kavanaugh.
That's what they've said here.
Then if that's the case, this whole thing should just end immediately.
Absolutely. They should go to these two first.
And what it should do is make everyone go to the polls in November and vote red, because the Democrats have made a spectacle of this. She wanted anonymity and did not get it. And then as soon as they leaked it, and Feinstein did.
Absolutely.
And when she leaked it, what happened? You had death threats to Judge Kavanaugh and his family, just running him through the mud. I mean, they might as well tied his hands up and drug him behind a horse.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm suspicious of the whole story because, A, I don't trust Time Magazine. B, it seems like a trial balloon that they're floating out there. There's no names. There's no information. There's no details whatsoever. And it could be just like raising false hope for our side. So, we push into it and then we find out that it's just a house of cards and it was just a fake out.
First of all, Time Magazine isn't the first one to cover it, so it's released by multiple news sources.
But I don't think she was attacked at all.
New York Times did it.
Everybody says, I believe she was attacked, but I don't think it was Kavanaugh.
Well,
why do you think she was attacked? There's no evidence that she was attacked.
Kavanaugh said that, and Trump said that. Somewhat.
But there's no evidence that she was attacked at all.
I'm just saying that if they're preaching that, then they're giving credence to that too. So we have an issue here. And if you're right, then we need to figure out that the media is putting out false flag narratives.
Yeah.
One or the other, you have to figure out why this kind of stuff is being either planted, or if it's not being planted and it's legit, then we need to know who they are.
Because if it falls through, then it looks like, maybe Ford was telling the truth.
Well, according to the different articles that I've read on this topic, the Senate Judiciary Committee spoke to these allegedly two people over the phone. So, right. I mean, if that is true,
but why would somebody come forward and say I attacked a woman? Who would do that?
I don't think that's but you just said it before. You said Kavanaugh didn't attack her.
Yeah.
You said he didn't sexually assault her. So if it wasn't sexual assault and it wasn't attack and it was a drunken just being stupid, then there was no crime.
We have to come back. We've got our first guest, public policy expert Michael Busler, coming on by. We're going to be talking about the winning economy of Donald Trump and how it's getting no coverage. Come back to Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Connecticut, Long Island, and Rhode Island. You're rocking with the best. Make sure you go to freedomondeck.com. At freedomondeck.com, you can listen to all our midweek podcasts, listen to the backtracks from the terrestrial FM show that we do here every Sunday with you from 3 to 5. And, of course, go like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check out our BitChute channel, check out our YouTube. Do it all. We need all your support, all the support that we can get to push the conservative message forward. It's really important for us. But we're going to take a break from Kavanaugh for a little bit. Thank God. All right? Because there are other things going on in the world and in America that we have to talk about, right?
That's right.
So the first guest of the program is a public policy analyst, an economics expert, and a professor of finance at Stockton University in New Jersey. He's also a featured columnist at Newsmax, LifeSet, and townhall.com. Welcome to the show, Professor Michael Busler. Michael, thanks for coming on by.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Oh, we appreciate it.
Again.
We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Now, Dr. Busler,
Yeah.
with everything surrounding Judge Kavanaugh and his hearings, hardly any attention has been given to Trump's new trade deals and economic progress. So I'm happy to have you on to discuss that. Tell our listeners about the renegotiated free trade agreement that President Trump and his South Korean counterpart, Moon Jae-in, signed.
Okay, well, first, let me say what President Trump's goals are. President Trump is a free trader. He favors free trade as long as everything is fair. The problem is when President Trump took a look at every trade agreement the U.S. had entered into with any country, they were all imbalanced. They were in favor of our trading partners and to the detriment of the U.S. For instance, with the European Union, they build a car in Germany or Italy, sell it in the U.S., we charge a 2.5% tariff. We sell a car, make a car in the U.S., sell it in Europe, they charge us a 10% tariff. In China, we charge them a 2% tariff, they charge us a 25% tariff.
Right.
The result is we buy a lot of their products, money flows out of the country, they buy very few of ours, very little of their money comes in. We have a negative balance of trade to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars every year. So President Trump said we have to renegotiate these and we have to do it right away. Now, President Trump is not a politician. He's a business person. A politician like George Bush or Barack Obama, they both said, okay, we have to renegotiate these things. So let's convene a summit. We'll talk for a while. We'll come back and meet next year. And before you know it, we kick the can down the road. President Trump is a business person. A business person sees a problem, especially if it affects the bottom line, and goes after it and confronts it immediately, which is exactly what he did. Problem was the trading partners didn't want to come to the table to renegotiate. Why should they? Every trade agreement is in favor of them and to the detriment of the U.S. So what does a business person do when you're trying to negotiate something with a reluctant partner? You create a sense of urgency. How did he do that? He started slapping very large tariffs on virtually everything. Our trading partners need us more than we need them. The Chinese need to sell us steel to keep their economy moving. We don't need their steel. We can make our own steel. So President Trump is going around on each agreement and trying to come up with something fair. He has something with Mexico now. He's trying to get Canada to go along with it to keep it truly a North America trade agreement. Canada's very reluctant to come to the table, mostly because they're getting a lot of pressure from their dairy farmers. And the reason is the U.S. is extremely efficient at producing dairy products. We can make something and sell it in Canada for $1. It costs the Canadian dairy farmers $3.50 to make it. So what does Canada do? They put a tariff of 270% on U.S. products. So the dollar product would now sell for $3.70 more than the Canadian, and it keeps the Canadian farmers in business, but it locks the Canadian market out for the U.S. So Canada is reluctant to come to the table. Now, your original question, sorry it took so long to get to the answer.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, your original question was, what about South Korea? Well, that too, that agreement was signed. The original agreement with South Korea was signed in 2012. It too was lopsided in favor of South Korea. So President Trump negotiated something with them. It's not perfect. It's not a true free trade agreement, but it is much freer than it was with the prior agreement. So we'll now be able to sell more of our products over there. They subsidize sort of some of their industries like steel. We limited how much steel they'll be able to sell here, and we now have something that is approaching more of a free trade agreement. The European Union has met with Trump and said, look, we're both going to work toward true free trade where there's no tariffs on anything. Now, because of politics, you'll never get there. But the closer you get to no tariffs on anything, the better it is for everyone. And that's what Trump is trying to do. He's been successful with Mexico. He's been successful with the European Union. He's been successful with South Korea. We're sort of successful with Japan. I think by the end of the year, China will come to us and say, look, this is really clobbering us, and it is. We're going to have to renegotiate something that's favorable. So although there may be some short-term pain, and there will be a lot of long-term gain in that foreign markets will now be open to U.S. Producers like they've never been open before.
Professor, do you think that the world is afraid of America's potential? I mean, you know, they saw how we performed during World War II. And, you know, we turned basically every factory in America into some sort of production for the war effort. And we were the victors. You know, we came in and basically saved the world. And absolutely. I think that for the world, I think for a lot of these countries, they understand how independent we are. We are right now, we are sitting on the largest oil reserve globally under the Dakotas. Correct. And goes into Canada. I mean, we have the steel, we have the iron ore, we have so many resources in this country that we could basically be independent, produce it here and use it here, and we would basically take the largest economy in the world and shut everybody out.
Yeah, we certainly can do that. I don't think the rest of the world fears us. I think the rest of the world respects us. Remember what Ronald Reagan did. He said, the stronger you make the military, the less likely you are to ever have to use it. He followed what he called a peace through strength. Get us so powerful that nobody would dare try to come up against the U.S. And that's what President Trump is doing. That's why Trump is very concerned with the deficit, which is huge. He understands that. But like with Reagan, he said, look, we have to build the military up. So he got 2 years, some high spending, $700 billion, to rebuild the military. And that's creating some economic issues that Trump will start dealing with right after the election. But it will make the U.S. military back to where it was before. In 2011, the Republican Congress wanted to reduce government spending to get the deficit down. President Obama said, how do you want to do that? They said, well, there's a lot of social programs. More than half of the government spending goes for income maintenance programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, those kind of things. So Congress said we're going to have to cut spending in social programs. President Obama said, for every dollar, I won't sign the bill unless you agree, for every dollar you take out of spending, you take a dollar out of social spending, social programs, you take a dollar out of defense spending. They called that the sequester, you may remember back in 2011. So what happened? They were able to hold the line. They didn't really reduce it. They just reduced the rate of growth in social programs, and they were forced then to reduce spending on the military, and our military was literally decimated. about a third of our planes couldn't fly, and they were being used as spare parts to keep the rest of them going. So Trump is going to fix all that. We're going to build up the military. It will be so strong again that people will say, whoa, this is the U.S. is showing how powerful it can be. The last thing we want to do is go up against that. And I think that will bring respect back to the U.S., respect that I believe we've lost over the last decade.
We have public policy analyst Dr. Michael Busler on the program with us. Michael, I wanted to ask you this, and we've only got about 4 minutes to go here, but President Trump talked about getting rid of NAFTA when he ran. NAFTA negotiations are still ongoing. In front of the press last week, the president said that he doesn't even like it referred to as NAFTA anymore. Where do you think these negotiations are headed, Professor?
Yeah, so Trump has already agreed. NAFTA is between Canada, all of North America, Canada, U.S., and Mexico. U.S. and Mexico have already agreed on a new deal. They want to bring Canada into it. Canada is reluctant to do that. So President Trump said, I'll go ahead and move forward with Mexico. Eventually, we'll end up working something out with Canada. And the deal that was negotiated between Mexico and the U.S. says that to avoid what China was doing, China would make a car in China, send it virtually 100% complete to Mexico. Mexico would put on the hubcaps and put on the seat covers and say the car was made in Mexico to avoid tariffs. Now Trump stopped that, but he said 75% of the car has to be produced. Now he didn't say in U.S. or Mexico. He said 75% of the car has to be produced in North America. So he gave room for Canada to come into this. If they can get over their dairy farmer issue and a couple other things with lumber, they ought to be able to come to the table, and we should be able to work this out. And it will be. Trump doesn't like NAFTA because NAFTA has bad connotations in his view. We've had it in effect now for 24 years. It is lopsided in favor of our trading partners. And a good example I like to use is, suppose we're playing a baseball game with Canada. The U.S. gets 3 outs every inning like you're supposed to. For whatever reason, we signed an agreement giving Canada and Mexico 4 outs every inning. After a couple of years go by, we realize we're losing every baseball game. So Trump is saying to Canada and Mexico, you get 3 outs per inning just like we do from now on. Mexico has agreed to work with us, and we have an agreement. I think within the next couple of months, by the end of the year, you'll see Canada and the U.S. come up with something also.
Well, Dr. Busler, thank you for coming on the program. Tell everybody where they can go and check you out, please, sir.
Sure. So the best spot, I have a page on Facebook called Funding Democracy, the Economics of Freedom. So if you go facebook.com/Funding Democracy, you can read all about it.
Thank you very much, everybody. That was the wonderful Dr. Michael Busler on with us. And when you guys come back, we're going to be getting back into Judge Kavanaugh, and we're going to be talking about Farrow of the New York Times saying that Senate Democrats came looking for second Kavanaugh accuser. What are the Democrats up to here? What's all this slush fund money coming from? GoFundMe pages for his accuser? This is ridiculous. Sheila Jackson slipping envelopes. Come on back, folks. This is Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk, F.O.D. on your FM dial. WJJF, of course. You're rocking with the best. You don't want to go anywhere else on your Sundays from 3 to 5. You stick it here. 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Stick it here all week. Don't change your dial. You know, you've got the best in conservative talk pumping from your car, from your radio at home, or right on your laptop or on your device. Right here, 949newsnow.com. You can also go check all the other shows out there, and we urge you to do this. Listen, we're going to be talking about the corruption of the Democrats and all of this with the prosecution and basically the persecution of Judge Kavanaugh is what I'd rather call it, the persecution. He was basically crucified. He's dragged through the mud. We have Ronan Farrow saying on ABC's Good Morning America on Monday that the Senate Democrats actually came looking for Deborah Ramirez, who has accused Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct while they were in college. While they were college students, she came forward because Senate Democrats began looking at this claim. She did not flag this for those Democrats. This came to the attention of the people on the Hill independently, and it's really cornered her into an awkward position, Farrow said. Farrow and Jane Mayer reported in the New Yorker Sunday about Ramirez's accusations against Kavanaugh, which involved Kavanaugh exposing himself at a dorm party during his freshman year at Yale. She claims Kavanaugh thrust his wanker into her face at the party, causing her to inadvertently touch it as she pushed him away. Kavanaugh has denied the accusations. So you see what's happening here is obviously this is another plant. This is another false accuser that the Democrats, even here, if they're not ginning this up, I don't know what else you'd call it. They're coming up with these witnesses themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I mean, you have all types of things going on. I mean, we were talking before, Sheila Jackson Lee. Okay. Now, this article, I mean, talking about how attorney Michael Bromwich, who joined Christine Blasey Ford's legal team just last week, is a known Democratic operative and rabid hater of President Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. He is even representing fired FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Bromwich is supposed to be working pro bono for Ford, but Eagle Eye reporters caught Sheila Jackson Lee looking nervous as she approached Bromwich and then slipped him what appeared to be an envelope, and it was. The Democrats mounted a vicious smear campaign against Judge Kavanaugh, and now it has backfired, all but backfired. And Bromwich, who just happened to join the Ford legal team, stood up and Sheila Jackson Lee approached him, pulled out the envelope from, her purse or whatever it was, and slipped it to him very, very suspiciously.
Yeah, but what were they doing? It was flagrant.
I mean, she slipped
and then she looked around the room.
She slips it to him. He immediately puts it on the inside pocket of his suit coat, and she puts her hand out to shakes his hand, and she looks around she's looking like, did anybody see that? And she fades in like she just melts in. And I mean, a woman her size is hard to melt into anything, but she melts in somehow.
Unless it's a bag of ho-hos melt into that. But CV, it looked like she had done this before. I mean, what do you think she was giving this guy?
It wasn't a birthday card, I'll tell you that.
No.
Right.
Was it a thank you card for representing Miss Ford?
No.
They're going to have to answer it eventually, right?
It was a check. It was a check.
A fat check.
I would immediately be looking at her at Ford's bank account, her husband's bank account, the attorney's bank accounts, everybody's bank account in the world that is in and around that team, that legal team.
All these accusers that keep popping up, they're being paid because Lisa Bloom was caught offering like $750,000 to one Trump accuser right before November 8th.
Yep, and that fell apart. And
she was caught. She's the daughter of Gloria Allred, that ambulance chaser who always comes out with false accusers also. It's an industry.
You had Avenatti.
It's a Avenatti.
Freaking, he gave $75,000 for that lady to come forward. What was it, Ramirez or whatever her name was?
Yeah.
The other accuser. He paid her $75,000.
Yeah. And don't forget, it's not just Soros. It's not just Soros with the deep pockets.
Man.
You have Google, Twitter, Amazon, Facebook. They have billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Facebook.
I'm sure they funnel money into these operations.
How about 3 GoFundMes for Blasey Ford on Facebook?
Yeah.
Which is accumulated millions of dollars now.
Oh, yeah, over $1 million now. I tell you what, with all the money they got, I mean, I'm inclined to say, Flake touched me back in the 80s. I mean,
right.
He got me. Go fund me. Go get me.
Well, Brian, don't you know, Flake's basically a Democrat anyway, and they stick up for their own, so the media wouldn't cover that anyway.
Exactly.
And nobody would get, no GoFundMeers would come and throw you any money.
I'd say that, and then you'd find me in my closet by a belt. Yeah.
Oh, especially if you said anything nasty about Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
But this whole thing, if, and everybody says, but you have to believe the accuser. No, I don't. No. I don't have to believe the accuser because I don't believe her and I don't believe any of the others. My big issue with all of this, aside from what the Democrats are doing or what the Republicans didn't do, the Republicans are ballless. And it was something CV was telling me before we went on the air, that he believes that Chuck Grassley is the one that's behind a lot of this.
Yeah.
And using Jeff Flake as a fall guy or as a patsy, as I like to say.
It's like good cop, bad cop. It's like the Republican leadership and the Democrats are playing good cop, bad cop, and they both want the same result, which is defeat Trump at every level.
Yeah. You know what we got to do? We got to put that video of Sheila Jackson Lee slipping him the envelope. We got to put that up on our Facebook, and we got to put that up on FreedomOnDeck.com. Yeah. Let you, the listener, take a look.
It's up on Facebook.
Go take a look. You tell us what you think.
It's up on our Facebook. It's been there for days. Been there for days. So anybody that wants to go look it up, hell, just go look. You just Googled it yourself. It came up with 100 hits. How do they get away with it? How do they get away with this corruption? And I feel like the Republicans allow them to.
Yeah.
You got a few good men.
They're in on
it.
And
the rest of them are in on it.
Yeah.
I mean, people scratching their head. How can this happen?
That's why in the midterms you want to elect people who are America first, not the same old, as Michael Savage says, the check pants Republican.
Yeah.
Well, it's that typical thing.
Country
what is
club
it?
Republican.
Power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, you guys are going to want to come back because we have the second guest of the day coming up. And he is a New York Times best-selling author. He's a contributor to Fox News. And he's the author of the new book due out in October, Spies in Congress. You're not going to want to miss this. You may have forgotten about this story, but it's still very important. Come on back to F.O.D. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck on 94.9 News Now and stimulating talk. Rocking out on your conservative FM dial. That's WJJF, Connecticut, Long Island, and Rhode Island. Let's go to FreedomOnDeck.com. Check out everything we have to offer there. It's a one-stop shop with our midweek podcast, our backtrack on terrestrial radio, and all of our social media is there for you. And please check all that as well and give us some support. Listen, our next guest is the executive editor of the magazine American Hunter and is also a New York Times best-selling author, Frank Miniter. Frank, welcome to Freedom on Deck.
Hey, thanks for having me here, guys.
Well, your next book is due out in October. Am I right there?
Yeah, absolutely, in a couple of weeks.
And it's called Spies in Congress. I've taken a peek on what this book is about, but tell our listening audience about your new book.
Yeah, this is about Imran Awan, who was a lead character, a lead role, running this Pakistani cell inside Congress, most famously working for Debbie Wasserman Schultz while she ran the DNC, and 44 of the Democrats, him and his team. And my investigation has showed that this leads back to Pakistan. They were a cell. This is the reason why it's called Spies in Congress. They were spying on Congress, and this has been majorly covered up.
Now, getting into the Justice Department, Did they cover up the spy ring that you speak of, this scandal in the Democratic congressional offices?
Wow, in such a disgusting way. In the beginning of the investigation, I've been on this for a year, chasing these people around with so many encrypted conversations and these weird conversations in Washington with sources where they're like deep throat. They're partly they're just afraid, and also partly they're playing the part up a little bit too much sometimes. But it got that way with congressional staffers and IT aides, current IT aides, and former and some current CIA and FBI. Some really interesting people going into this background, who these people are, what they were doing, and absolutely that they were this is covered up. They were absolutely spies. They were downloading terabytes of data from these congressmen onto the Democratic caucus server that then vanished, but also onto a private Dropbox account and on other means likely, because this does go back to Pakistan and Pakistani intelligence service. So yeah, the Department of Justice did cover this up, and I dealt with them firsthand. And at first they were really going after it. They had a different prosecutor who was really pushing the case on it and doing some very interesting stuff. A guy named Michael Morando. But then suddenly it all went quiet, and about 6 months go by before the next hearing. And the next guy who shows up in the court was just put on this 3 days before. An attorney just put a plea deal agreement through, a total sweetheart plea deal agreement through to cover this whole thing up. When I asked him questions about it, right in front of Imran Awan and his attorney, who had worked for Bill Clinton and for Hillary Clinton, this Department of Justice attorney laughed me off. Oh, it's all a joke. Go away. You insipid little reporter. How dare you ask me a real question? So, right from this has been majorly covered up on many different levels for many different reasons.
Now, Frank, was Debbie Wasserman Schultz complicit in allowing Imran Awan to work as an IT aide, or was it that they just didn't do their due diligence on Awan?
I think it's both. I think that at first he was in a protected class of people with her. He's a first-generation immigrant. He got here on the visa lottery and then brought his family members in. A lot of them became the rest of his team, mostly no-show employees, being paid huge salaries in Congress. And they all got in there without background checks. So absolutely, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is complicit in this thing. She kept paying him after he was thrown off the House network for 6 months. She kept paying him with public money because she said it was a racist thing, it was Islamophobia for journalists and so on, and prosecutors to be pushing this case against him. He was arrested as he tried to flee the country to Pakistan, where his wife was, with a lot of money transferred over and a lot of money on him. Arrested. He just cleaned his phone. Literally just wiped his phone because he knew he was going to be questioned and taken there. This is just all the hallmarks of a spy caught about to run out of the country. Meanwhile, that's finally when Debbie Wasserman Schultz fired him, when he was arrested for bank fraud charges, which is so clear he was guilty of.
How come she wasn't arrested?
Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Yes.
I sat down with Republican leaders, the ones who would talk to me on that, and they said they just didn't feel like the media out there was doing enough of the narrative on this kind of thing for them to have the cover to really start an investigation on this. So I thought was just so incredibly wimpy of them. I mean, just even the RNC wouldn't touch this, and I have contacts that take me right to the top of the RNC. So I know my questions were sent right to the top of there. They would not respond to any of this kind of stuff. Speaker Ryan would not respond to any of this kind of stuff. There are only about a half dozen Freedom Caucus members, basically all Republicans, who are willing to talk about this in a very loud kind of way. And a couple other Republicans who are on record, and they're in Spies in Congress on the book, who sat down with me, one on the Intelligence Committee, Chris Stewart from Utah, and he's like, I just don't see the big deal here. And so I started telling him facts. I was telling him information about this thing, and he's just sat there shocked. He goes, well, if I knew that, well, I just didn't know that. It just hadn't been briefed on a lot of this intel.
We have author of the new book coming out, Spies in Congress, New York Times bestselling author and contributor to Fox News, Frank Miniter. Now, Frank, how many Democrat members of Congress were infiltrated by the Awan spy ring?
A total of 44.
Whoa!
Had hired them. Yep. And they all have things to hide. They downloaded terabytes of data from these politicians. 44. So all their emails, their who they're speaking with, and when. This team of Pakistani, this I call them Pakistani cell because that's what they are, was even spying on the congressional staffers. I've had IT aides who are currently now working in Congress who've taken over offices that the Awans were running, and they got the iPhones that had been set up by Imran Awan for these congressional staffers. They looked at the iPhones, and they found out that Imran Awan had his Apple ID address as the Apple ID address on those phones. When I asked, why would he possibly do that? And these IT aides are like, the only reason he would do that is so he could see the text, the emails, the phone calls, everything they're doing, so he could spy on them.
Frank, what kind of information was Mr. Awan privy to while serving as Miss Wasserman Schultz IT aide? Was he privy to information about members of the DNC?
Oh, yes, everything. She's even said on record that he had access to all of her devices while she ran the DNC. And of course, that's when she was hacked. That's when she lost her position at the DNC because she was hacked. He was her IT aide, and she said on the record that he had access to all her devices, all the passwords, everything. He was completely trusted by her during that whole period of time. I mean, he would be suspect number one in any kind of open, any kind of honest investigation into how the DNC was hacked.
So we can assume the Pakistani government has information on members of Congress and also could have some top secret information of having to do with our government and or military.
I wouldn't just assume it. It's actually obvious. And when I sat down with CIA, who were experts in the Middle East, these are not just run-of-the-mill CIA. That's their career. They're experts in the Middle East. And someone on the record, they're in the book, and they're like, they looked at all the dots, they looked at all the characters, and they said this has to be a Pakistani cell. There just couldn't be anything else. Pakistan Intelligence, ISI, all the time goes after even a professor from Pakistan that's here in the United States that's speaking on Pakistan in any kind of way always gets approached by ISI. That's even been written by the New York Times before. This is what they do. For them not to approach a group of IT aides working in Congress, it just wouldn't make any sense. Of course, they had to have done that.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, Frank, he had to have had some sort of access to classified information if he was in that role with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, no?
There's two systems in Congress, and there is a classified system that I'm told he did not have access to. What he had access to is their email, their records, who they were speaking to. I mean, everything else besides the classified data that would be coming from other departments of government.
Well, we know that Hillary Clinton had a unsecure server, and she was putting classified information on that server, and she's part of the DNC. How do we know that this man did not have any of that information?
Oh, we don't. I'm not saying we do. And he certainly had access to the DNC to a lot more than has been made public. And you go through the motives for all these different people, the Republicans, the Democrats, but also to the various parts of government. You start to see why they covered this up. For example, State Department, I would imagine, was pressuring the Department of Justice on this. Contacts had told me that because right now our troops in Afghanistan are supplied mostly through Pakistan, and Pakistan is hardly our ally. To put that in perspective, just realize Pakistan still has 4 people in jail for the crime of helping us get Osama bin Laden.
Mm. Well, Mr. Awan didn't die of a mysterious death, so maybe he didn't have any information on Hillary Clinton. A barbell didn't fall on his chest, Frank. I
think he has a lot, actually.
He probably doesn't have any belts in his closet.
Frank, I want to ask you this, too. We recently found out that Dianne Feinstein had a driver of 20 years that ended up being a Chinese spy. Why are the Democrats having this problem, Frank?
They have so much to hide, and they look at this through a political lens, and I think Debbie Wasserman Schultz was guilty of that from the beginning. I mean, this guy was, like I said earlier, in a protected class of people. He's a first-generation immigrant. He's a Muslim American. Democrats look at him as someone they have to protect. So right away they're thinking, we have to protect this kind of person. But then he was very useful to them. I mean, I've had IT aides in Congress, current people working there. They're like, we didn't understand why Imran Awan was being invited to all like the top parties. I mean, there's photos of him out there with former President Bill Clinton at some of these parties. And they're like, why in the world would an IT aide be invited to these big shindigs where he's wearing tuxedos and getting to meet all these top people? IT aides don't get to do that. We're like a bunch of plumbers is what they tell me.
Hey, Frank, who do you think supplied the DNC emails to WikiLeaks?
The first suspect I would look at is Imran Awan, because there are a lot of experts who've looked at this, and I cite some of them in Spies in Congress, that say, wait a second, we've looked at the data, and it's obvious that it's likely not hacked from an off-site place, because it was downloaded too fast. The speeds over wire just isn't fast enough. It's more than likely it was done by an inside job and then leaked. who is the number one insider who has all access to all this, who is spying, and not just spying and going back to Pakistan, but we know from some of his relatives he's actually spying on some of his relatives and other issues, and that's in court records that they've accused him of that. So the number one suspect just has to be Imran Awan.
Frank, did Awan ever serve any kind of time behind bars for his illegal activities while serving under Ms. Schultz?
No, all he had to do was wear an ankle bracelet for 8-9 months.
That is unbelievable. And
there's no fine, there's no jail time, nothing.
And we wonder why the American people don't trust politics in America right now.
Listen, but 9/11 happened because we allowed people in here that we didn't vet.
That's
right.
a good.
I don't know that Congress has made the right reforms now to stop the next Imran Awan, because other intelligence services must be looking at this and saying, "Wow, wait a second, this group got in there without background checks." And working with congressmen who worked on the Intelligence Committee and other major committees inside Congress, we could just spy on them just willy-nilly and do what we want. Wow.
It's funny you at this point. That was my next question for you. What has Congress done to prevent the next Awan?
Yeah, and some sources have told me they have done stuff behind the scenes. They've been locking it down, and supposedly now they're actually doing background checks on these people. But I can't get them to confirm that. I can't even get them to confirm if the laptop that Debbie Wasserman Schultz wanted back so badly she threatened Capitol Police with consequences if it wasn't returned to her promptly, if that has now been returned to her, because Imran Awan now has this plea deal, and supposedly now they've dropped all other charges. So has that laptop now be giving back to her? Capitol Police won't even answer that basic question.
Unbelievable to me. Now, Frank, just tell everybody where they can go check you out, the website, and where they can get the book and when the book comes out.
Spies in Congress, it's out. It's already on digital. You can download it right now if you go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Technically it's out October 16th, but I think in about a week the print copies are actually going to be available. And you can find me at Fox News. You can find me at America's First Freedom. My website is frankminiter.com.
All right, and that's Frank Miniter, and that's MINITER, and make sure that you pick up Spies in Congress, because this is important stuff, folks. We really have to put a noose on this problem we're having in Congress. It's very important. This book's very important to read. But listen, come on back, because we're going to be talking about the Brett Kavanaugh accuser who sued her former employee for sexual harassment. You know, the one being represented by the porn lawyer. Yeah, her. Come back to Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Thanks for being with us here, folks. Today's program is sponsored by Frosted Flakes. Frosty Jeff Flakes. Had to do it. Judge Brett Kavanaugh's third sexual assault accuser goes by the name of Julie Swetnick.
Sweaty neck. She
seems to have a few skeletons in her closet.
Oh, yeah.
Swetnick accused Kavanaugh of gang raping her in high school, and she sued her former employer, New York Life Insurance Company, for sexual harassment. The Daily Wire reported this. Her attorney was none other than Deborah Katz, who is currently representing Kavanaugh's initial accuser, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. This is from townhall.com, which is very reliable. The company ultimately settled with Swetnick. According to the Daily Caller News Foundation, she has had financial issues over the last few years.
No,
yeah. And actually, it was I'm getting off Town Hall here, but she's actually paid $75,000 by that wonderful porn lawyer to come forward with these accusations.
Oh, yeah?
Avenants.
Oh, I can't wait till the FBI gets into that.
We'll see if they do. We're waiting for the FBI to get into all these things.
Yeah. They're listen. The ball's gonna drop.
We're hoping.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
Well, what about the fact that, hold on, because it doesn't end there. This is the same woman whose former boyfriend had to have a restraining order put against her.
Yes.
She was threatening his now current wife.
Richard Venesi, for anybody wanting to know, filed a restraining order against
Let's get into that.
Swetnick. She allegedly threatened to kill him after he broke up with her. And this is coming from Politico.
And was coming to his house, all types of stuff. Now, nothing happened. He asked her to leave. But, I mean, that's a little cray-cray.
Very cray. Super cray. What you think, CV? What about this Swetnick?
Well, I read the article and I saw that during a lunch, like a business lunch, she was being very inappropriate and sexually, she was accused of sexual misconduct at this lunch in front of other clients by a couple of her coworkers. And then she turned around and accused them. And then next thing you know, she's on disability with a mental breakdown.
So she was doing the sexual harassing.
Yeah, she's a nutcase. And then she's having money problems, and she's being paid by that
porn lawyer.
That porn lawyer.
Avenatti.
I don't even think the Democrats are taking this one seriously.
I would have never guessed that Avenatti would have a cray-cray representing someone as cray as this.
Get out.
No.
You mean like somebody that gets paid to have sex?
Right. What is his deal with representing women that are all about sex? Like, what is this guy?
I bet it's probably pro bono.
And did you see that picture of Avenatti that was they actually scrubbed from the internet? At least he scrubbed it from his Twitter. It was him partying with Stormy Daniels and Don Lemon.
Don Lemon.
Isn't that nice? I'm glad Don Lemon's out there partying and showing that he's nonpartisan. It's good. It's really good. Because that's what we need around here, more nonpartisanship.
This is a wad of wet toilet paper that's not even sticking to the ceiling.
No, it's bad. But people need to know who these women are because all they do is tarnish the original accusee.
Well, it makes it worse.
Yes.
Definitely. And then if you lose credibility with one, you lose it with all.
Absolutely.
Right, Blumenthal?
Stolen Valor, Blumenthal. Listen,
Bloomy.
We're going to come back. We're going to be talking about the founder of a group that harassed Ted Cruz's family. He's back in the spotlight, Mr. Giraffe Neck. You guys know and love him. Antifa professor. Come on back to Freedom on Deck. No games played here. Freedom on Deck. Thank you for being with us on your Sunday. Oh, yeah. Another quality show. And talking about all these controversial topics that are going on in America right now. And we're going to be talking about one of our old adversaries, Mr. Giraffe Neck, as we like to call him when he first came about. He's the founder of the Smash Racism DC group that harassed Senator Ted Cruz and his wife in a restaurant the other week, last week or a week, what was that, about 2 weeks ago?
No,
week and a half ago.
I don't even think it was 2 weeks.
It was about a week ago.
I think it was last week.
He's the Antifa professor, Mike Isaacson, who previously tweeted about teaching future dead cops and assassinating Mike Pence. We saw these angry leftists going in to this restaurant and forcing Ted Cruz and his wife to leave. They later returned and finished their meal. And that was in Washington, D.C. And, you know, these restaurants that are allowing this to happen, first of all, should be ashamed of themselves to allow people to come in. If people come in and are harassing your patrons, you should be calling authorities to get their you-know-whats thrown out of that establishment, period. And another thing, I bet Mad Maxine Waters is happy again and probably had a big old smile on her goofy face, her brainless head, because go confront them wherever they are. Confront them in the restaurants, at the gas stations.
At the gasoline
Make them feel that they're
station.
not welcome. Show them they're not welcome. That's right. Harass them. I wasn't saying it that time, but I usually say it. Yeah, attack them. Hurt them, right, Mad Max? Instead of Senator Cruz being attacked, it got close. They were spitting in his wife's face. And then you got this scumbag, this professor, that talks about killing police and assassinating the vice president. I'm sure plenty of nice things about the president himself. The Antifa professor who's still working right now. I'm sick and tired of it.
What university?
It's John Jay College.
All right, that's what we need to do.
John Jay College?
That's what it said.
Okay. All right.
That's what we need to do. We need to surround them in the gasoline station or on campus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's enough with this PC nonsense.
No.
From conservatives.
I'm tired of it.
Here's a guy on Twitter. He says, "Kill all white people born before 1962." I guess that doesn't include me. But he's white himself. And on Twitter he says, "Reminder, if Trump wins, assassinate Pence first. And kill your local politicians before they kill you." Now, I'm the one who's shadow banned, but not him. Now, explain that one to me,
Yeah,
Jack Dorsey.
And they're talking about killing people in the middle of the night.
Right.
To act in the daytime.
Is that him?
Yeah, well, it's one of them.
Yeah.
It's Antifa.
Same.
When are we going to label them a terrorist group in America?
I already did.
When is our government
Yeah,
going to label them a terrorist
I
group?
know.
Well, maybe this professor needs to get Kathy Bates or have Kathy Bates visit him like in the movie Misery. Just put a block of wood between his ankles.
Yeah. Mr. Man.
Guys, this is serious stuff. They're now calling for violence. I mean, they've been calling for violence, but now they're saying to kill conservatives.
Well, here's what I don't understand. Listen, we're talking about a senator. Why doesn't he have a security detail?
I don't know.
Come on, man.
That's a good question.
And I know for a fact that congressmen and senators can request one. And I'll tell you right now, I hope that Senator Cruz has one or has requested one for him and his family. Because I'll tell you right now, if there was Secret Service around,
Yeah, we already know that Mike Isaacson and Smash Racism DC are without excuse, and they're just despicable lowlives. But what really bothers me is that restaurant. How come that restaurant didn't do a thing to help Cruz? And also, I wish Cruz would have called the police or stood up to them a little bit more. That's what I think.
Well, I think what he was doing was trying to get his wife the hell out of there.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think he recognized that he was in enemy territory and he better scramble. He did turn her around and say, "Let my wife through."
Yeah.
When they blocked her and were spitting in her face.
If his wife wasn't there, it would have been a different
And
story.
now everybody's attacking Ted Cruz. They're all saying, "Oh, now you're on the campaign trail with Trump? Remember what he said about you?" Give me a break.
Well, it was.
Give me a break.
It went both ways. They were going against each other.
Well, the point is they try to pit you against each other.
Exactly.
When they're the enemies, not Cruz and not Trump. And it's not Trump saying get in the people's faces at the restaurant, scream at them at the gasoline stations. And I didn't say to be violent to him tonight, but I did most of the time. Not this time.
right.
Imagine if he said that
Right.
at one of his rallies. I know that the Democrats, for some reason, think he says it every night and think that he creates this hatred in America when it was the previous 8 years that this swelled in this country with a president that attacked our law enforcement, our military,
Well, it's just-
and to think that was never covered by the media at all.
Well, we've had politicians that have been shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on both sides, Kathy Gifford was shot.
By a Democrat.
Okay, I don't care. She was still
I'm
shot.
just saying
by
it
somebody
was
that
by a
was
liberal.
By somebody that was an idiot. It's time to stop calling for violence because you don't agree with somebody.
They're communists, Brian.
Well, then it's time.
They're going to call for violence.
Then it's time to have congressmen and senators be able to pack.
We've been saying that for a while.
The other day, a guy with a Proud Boys shirt was beat up. Proud Boys, it's...
the Proud Boys.
Yeah. Gavin McInnes group.
Yeah, I know what it is. The Proud Boys. And it's
yeah.
It's also somewhat of a militia, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
The Proud Boys also a militia?
No, I think it's just a men's club.
Okay.
I don't know.
Because I thought it was also involved with the militia that you're involved with, Brian. I thought there were connections
Oath
between
Keepers?
them. Yeah, and the Proud Boys.
I mean, there's probably some
or either
Oath Keeper
that, or
members in
maybe
there.
maybe the Proud Boys are also Oath Keepers.
There could be. I mean,
well, I mean, we only have so many Oath Keepers out there that can go that are working every day, unlike these schlub communists that can show up and protest wherever they want because they don't have a job. The conservatives that actually give a damn in this country have to work 9 to 5 and pay their bills. Yep. They can't go and protest every politician that they don't agree with.
And pay the taxes that the government misspends.
How about we start going up to these Democrats when they're eating their meals and showing them pictures of dead babies?
Just walk right up to Maxine's table and flip it. Whoa!
I would like to see our side hit back. I would like to see our side push back a little bit, too.
And I hear from these Republicans, and I hear some of them around me, too. And they're such weenies. They have no balls. It's time to grow a pair, finally. Push back. Get angry, for God's sakes. How much longer are you going to allow this to happen? They're attacking you. You think it's only going to happen to those on the very far right? It's only going to happen to Alex Jones? No, they're coming for you next. You're next. And if you're not next, you're next after that. You're always the next in line.
And then if we hit back, they're going to be like, see how violent they are?
Well, they've been playing that game for a long time. It's just like when the media showed the Trump supporter that punched the black guy when he was getting kicked out. When if you showed the whole footage, that guy that was in that rally was cursing. He was spitting on people. And you know what? That gentleman at that rally decided, I'm going to punch him in the face. And you know what? I was fully behind that. I don't care who likes hearing that or not.
It was a weak punch, though. I mean, should have knocked him out.
Well, he's an old man. He was an old good old boy.
Tell you what, man. I've seen some old men that were in the boxing ring. Just because they were old men, they could put you down.
Yeah. I was having a few words with some protesters outside of a Trump event in Staten Island in 2016. And the guy kept saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like, I'm going to hit him. And I kept saying back to him, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And we were both saying the same thing. Nobody's going to lay a glove on each other. But, if he would have touched me, it would have been a different story.
This professor, Mike Isaacson,
inciting violence.
He put out a tweet, and it was a poem in which he asserts that one day Donald Trump will be hung by his toes. Roses are red and delivered by Cupid. If you're worried about Russia, you're blanking stupid. Blue is a violet, red is a rose. One day Donald Trump will hang by his toes.
Yeah. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword, Mike.
Good point. I don't know. We got to get a hold of all this stuff, though, guys. At some point. We got to start sticking up for ourselves. At some point. I'm not crazy for saying it. I don't think so. Unless I'm alone in all this.
No.
And stick up for each other, too.
Yeah, stick up for your brother, your conservative brother in arms. Start to actually get angry. We're not calling for a civil war on this show. We never have. They've been calling for it for a very long time. Beating the drum louder and louder. And now it's gotten deafening. To the point where good, great, patriotic, conservative men are being brought in front of the Romans to be fed to the lions like Judge Kavanaugh is.
Yeah.
Come on back to Freedom on Deck. We're going to finish up the show. There was a man arrested near L.A. with 2 live IEDs. A terrorist, and nobody talked about it on the mainstream media. All the Kavanaugh stuff got in the way. Come on back to Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. My main man, Kid Rock, rocking it out for us. That means it's the final thoughts, the final topic of the day. We usually try to tell you something that the mainstream media is hiding from you. And this one was written up in the LA Times. I'm reading it from PJ Media, a very reliable source of ours. We have folks from PJ Media that comes on the show, of course. And there was a man arrested near Los Angeles with 2 active IEDs. Police near Los Angeles arrested a man following a traffic stop last week after they discovered 2 active IEDs in his vehicle. Saleh Ali, 47, is being charged with transportation and possession of destructive devices, according to a press release by the Orange County District Attorney's Office. KTLA reports Saleh Ali, a Muslim, was arrested Tuesday when a Bree officer pulled him over about 9 p.m. for having an expired registration on his vehicle. Bree Police Lieutenant Adam Hawley said during the traffic stop, the officer keyed in a couple of suspicious items in the car he believed to be an explosive device. Hawley said he detained the driver out of an abundance of caution, locked down a little bit of the area, and called out Sheriff's Bomb Squad deputies. The deputies destroyed the suspected explosive devices at the scene, Hawley said. Ali's last known address is Salinas, California. Prosecutors say that the devices destroyed by the Orange County Sheriff's Department Bomb Squad were containers covered in shrapnel and would have exploded had they come in contact with an ignition source. There is no evidence so far that shows any connection to a terrorist organization, the Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center. Well, that's funny, because when I was looking in another write-up about this fine gentleman, I doubt he was part of the Religion of Peace. They said that he was under a terrorist watch list, so something doesn't make sense here. Ali's bail was set at $500,000, and a pre-trial hearing is set for this Friday, September 28th, so this already happened. He is still being held in Orange County Jail. Bail set. Bail set for a terrorist riding around with bombs. And no one on mainstream media has talked about this. Not even Fox News. They may have sniffed it for a second. And you people out there aren't paying attention, and you need to wake up.
And it's funny how these liberal California officials, the first thing they say, the first thing that comes out of their mouths, no evidence of a connection with any terrorist organization. Really? Did you look for a connection? Because it looks like, it's like a knee-jerk reaction when they say that.
Well, how can you even make that statement so quickly after the incident?
You can't.
Hello?
No evidence.
Did the FBI investigate that?
I doubt it.
No word on his immigration status. We don't know if he was a refugee.
Maybe he should have wrote Kavanaugh on the bomb.
They say he was living in California, but from what I understand, and I can't pull the article up right now, but he was arrested before on terrorist reasons.
Yeah, I think in New York.
Yeah.
Unreal.
And now they're saying, even in PJ Media, saying that this guy's not a terrorist. Look at him. Look at the picture of him. Look at him. Yeah. That's a terrorist. For all you people listening out there, go and look at this story on PJ Media. Look up man arrested near Los Angeles with 2 active IEDs. And you will see the picture of this man. And he is, if you looked in the dictionary, this face would be under terrorist. This would be the descriptionary picture of what a terrorist looks like. No connections to ISIS, no connections to Al-Qaeda.
And back in the desert that he called his home, he could have been an ISIS member. You wouldn't know because there are no records. They don't keep any records in those backwards countries. You can't vet these people. If you can't vet them, don't let them in.
Very insensitive to say they're backwards.
Hey.
Yes, they're fine, and we should have no background checks. People, borders, we should be building bridges, not walls.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we should be doing, Brian.
Exactly.
And how dare the president?
I'll build a bridge for them to go back home on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, why a bridge? We could build one of those little walkways like they have over the highway. You know what I'm saying?
We could build a bridge with
a catwalk right over the Rio Grande.
A moat underneath it with alligators and push them into the moat over the bridge.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't have an issue with.
I like the idea of deportation by trebuchet.
How about build a garbage
What's
chute?
that?
A trebuchet?
Yeah.
That's that. You know that like it's like almost like one of those medieval.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it like chucks the burning ball of fire and tar.
Yeah, chuck them back over the wall.
Yeah. Build the wall first, then use the trebuchets.
Yeah.
Going into Los Angeles with 2 active IEDs containing shrapnel. Who knows what he was targeting?
Yeah, it was all wrapped in shrapnel.
Right. Who knows what he was targeting? He could have been targeting, the trains. He could have been targeting a sporting event. He could have been targeting a mall. He could have been targeting who you just don't know. And to think that you would set bail for this guy.
Maybe he was targeting a country concert.
$500,000. I'm surprised the Muslim Brotherhood didn't send it out and send Linda Salsauer over.
Listen, that would be very suspicious. So let's just wait for CARE to do it.
We could have Sheila Jackson Lee go into the precinct and slip him an envelope.
Slip a bill.
Slip him a bill.
Slip him a bill.
Get the terrorist off. These are the people that the Democrats support.
These are the people Obama brought in.
Pretty much.
Oh, bummer.
We've got some dangerous folks crawling throughout this country, and you know what worries me is that we're not talking about it anymore. There is going to be a huge-scale terrorist attack in this country soon. You watch. There will be, because the American people's blinders are up.
And it will without a doubt, it will originate and be planned from Michigan.
Well, one of the reasons why we haven't seen a lot of
one of the Great Lakes
One of the reasons why we haven't seen a lot of Islamic terrorism is because Trump is letting the law enforcement do their job.
Oh, he is. No, I agree. President Trump's doing a great job. The problem is the previous 8 years prior to him getting into the presidency, we had a very dangerous man, and we haven't been able to get all of them out. Hey. And let's face it, there are all these tax-free organizations like CARE that are connected to the Muslim Brotherhood that protect people like this.
Oh, GoFundMe is tax-free too. And listen, if you're in New York, you better realize that Gillibrand, I like to call her Gullible Brand.
Gullible Brand.
Okay? She is sitting there vowing that if they win a majority in the midterms, they are going to push to abolish ICE.
You cannot abolish ICE in this country.
They are going to try.
I understand she's going to try. Folks, anyone that agrees with that is insane.
Well,
insane.
I said she's Gullible Brand.
She's not gullible. She's dangerous, that woman. That woman is pure evil. Anyone that wants to abolish ICE wants terrorists to walk free in your country. All the terrorists per day that ICE stops, and there's plenty of them that you don't hear about, coming across our southern border with prayer rugs, which they find, by the way, and automatic weapons.
And that guy right there was just a traffic stop.
Right. They're lucky they got him.
Thank you.
They're lucky they were able to pull him over. If not, we'd be hearing about it. Or maybe we wouldn't. We'd be talking about Kavanaugh. Even if he committed this terrorist attack, people would be glued to the television. It's sad. There's been a lot of terrorist attacks throughout this country over the past, give or say,
remember
7-8 years that they get glossed over.
Remember
they really do.
Remember the video that the guy took in Florida? This is going back a ways when Barry was still in office, and they were putting the propane tanks, loading up an entire pickup truck with of 30-pound propane tanks. Mm-hmm. That was sick.
A driving bomb.
Wow.
And then we actually looked at the YouTube videos where they were firing propane tanks in Syria at buildings.
Yeah. Yep.
And they were pulling over Muslims in America with truckloads of propane tanks. And then if you said anything, you were racist. Islamophobic racist.
Yeah. They were just having a big barbecue.
Which we've said it plenty of times on the show. I've said it. CV said it. You've said it. Islam is not a race.
No, it's an ideology.
It's a religion and ideology, folks. Stop. Stop with the madness.
Yep.
You know? I'm not plugging Michael Savage's book here. Stop the mass hysteria. You know? it gets to the point where you really say to yourself, something's got to give. Something has got to give here.
But our universities keep churning out people like Gillibrand by the truckloads, and we got to get a hold of our universities.
Listen, we're going to be coming back to you next week. We're done with the show this week, and it was fantastic having you here on your Sunday. Dan Neubauer is going to be coming by with us again. We're going to be talking about all things Trump with him, probably more Kavanaugh. We've also got Josh and Nicole Landers. They've been on with us before. They're out there fighting for your children's rights and to stop bullying. And until then, have a fantastic day. Come here. Same Freedom time, same Freedom station. Take care.